What's up guys, Frank Macaluso here from Garageaholic giving you another episode of the N54 maintenance series. Today we're going to be working on replacing those two exhaust downpipes with upgraded VRSF catless downpipes. What we need to do first is do some of the wiring, and then we're going to start going into the mechanical removal of the actual downpipes from the exhaust. Now if you want to see how I remove the exhaust, how I remove the cowling, that's in other videos in this series. There's tons more videos if you look right up there. There's tons of other videos on the N54 maintenance that you can go and reference on how to do those things, because I'm not going to recreate it for this video. Thanks guys, and take a look if you're interested. Thanks. That's right, we still have this engine supported from previous videos, but for the purposes of the exhaust downpipes, what we need to do is remove the two connectors here. There's a black one, and then there's a gray one, and these two connectors need to be removed from the assembly so that when we remove the downpipes, that those oxygen sensors come down with them, and then I have the slack in the wiring here to account for that. The reason that we need to do that is because we cannot access those oxygen sensors without doing that. And we can't get a wrench in there in order to remove the sensors. So it's just easier to remove the downpipes and have the wiring come down with it and maybe slack down a little bit. We can pull it back up when we reinstall the new ones, but we're gonna end up replacing the downpipes and putting in the oxygen sensors in the places that they were removed so that we know that we didn't swap one by accident. But before we do that, let's take a look and see what these new downpipes are. And then we'll put them both, the old and the new, side by side and take a look to see what the differences are. These are pretty quality downpipes, so I'm pretty excited to compare the two. So this is the kit from VRSF. Pretty cool. They TIG their insignia there, VRSF, in there just like they did with the intake filters. And this kit is pretty comprehensive. It comes with the blockage ports for the pre and post Cat O2 sensor. This is fully TIG welded stainless steel. Comes with the exhaust flanges here that connect to the stock E92 exhaust. And it comes with the V-band clamps with new gaskets. Now when we remove the old ones, we have to be careful that the gaskets also get removed so that we can put the new ones on. We can't put two sets of gaskets on there by accident, or else you won't get a good seal. Has all the hardware as well. So yeah, we got some pretty good stuff here. And yeah, let's start to figure out how to remove the old downpipes. Now, since this is part of a series, I'm actually got some work already previously done from those other videos in this part 2. So please take a look at part 2 and the other videos there so you can see exactly how I remove things like the front subframe, which is not required for the VRSF downpipes. And yeah, so I mean, you just kind of have to take a look at the whole video series as a whole. So here is, see, everything's kind of loose here. These are the downpipes. They are connected by V-band clamps up in there. Let me see if I can get a better view here, right? So there's two 13mm nuts, bolts actually, that connect one here and then one up here. So getting to it is takes a 13mm nut wrench, and you loosen them up, and then you have to use a pry bar to pry them loose. Well, I kind of actually just did it right off camera, but yeah. So these are pried loose, and now we can. There we go. See, kind of like right up there. That guy's loose, and the other one here, all the way deep in there. That one is also loose. So let's catch these here before they fall. Okay, so I know that was probably a really, really sad time lapse, but I was able to remove them, and I have them now supported on this jack stand. I do not want to let them hang because I don't want to ruin not only the wiring, but also the leads that go to the oxygen sensors. They're pretty expensive to replace, and if they're not faulty, why try to replace them as precautionary? You just don't need to. In this case, we know that cylinders 1 through 3 is the black wire, and cylinders 4 through 6 is the gray wire. So we know that for all cylinder 1 through 3, we deal with black, 4 through 6 is always gray. So that's actually a pretty good method to figure out whether or not you have your oxygen sensors lined up correctly. And that's important too. Why is that important? It's important because when you're dealing with codes, those codes correspond to certain oxygen sensors. So if you have an oxygen sensor fault on pre-cat bank 1, which is 1 through 3, you know that you have to replace that oxygen sensor. So if you cross them by accident, when you're replacing bank 1 pre-cat, you might actually have the fault in pre-cat bank 2, or the opposite of that for the post-cat. So you have to be careful about replacing those oxygen sensors in the right places because the codes that correlate to them are accurate to those locations. So just be mindful of that when you do your replacements. So we laid them out side by side. We got obviously the VRSF and the stock. And yeah, I mean, the idea is that these should be mounting up and being almost identical to each other in terms of fitment. And we'll find out exactly how true that is. So what we need to do is remove these two oxygen sensors and place them on here where they belong, and then remove these guys. And when we do the reinstallation, we need to put those oxygen sensors in those locations while it's hanging. Makes things a little bit easier for the rewire. All right, so now that we've got both of the downstream oxygen sensors installed onto the VRSF downpipes, we've removed the plugs on the top so we can get those pre-cat oxygen sensors installed later. These are now useless to us. We have all the hardware we need to do the installation, but before we do that, it's a really, really good idea to take a look at the turbo inlets. Let's see what they look like, and let's remove the old downpipe gaskets and make sure that we prepare for a good installation and make sure that we're installing onto some good turbos. So looking at the turbos here, you got the front one really looks good. There is very little dirt and soot in there. So I am pretty convinced that this is a very healthy turbo. This car did not have the wastegate rattle issue, so these turbos definitely have a lot of life left in them for a just above 100,000 mile engine. So this is really good. Let's take a look and see if there's any play. Well, there's a little bit of play, but I think that's pretty normal. Let's take a look at the rear turbo too. And the rear turbo looks very similar as well. You want kind of like that white dusting in there with the black soot on the outside there that you see is pretty normal. But to have that black oily residue inside of there is really bad. It basically identifies an early turbo failure where the seals on the shaft are letting oil pass through and it gets burned up by the turbo itself and it goes out the exhaust tailpipe, hence the blue smoke issue that you see. But these turbos are in really good shape. There are no leaks coming from any of the pipes or tubes. So I feel very confident in reinstalling these turbos, reinstalling these downpipes as is. But first we do need to remove this gasket and make sure that that gets removed, and then we can put the new gasket in so it makes a really nice, good seal. All right, it was a little tricky to remove those V-bands, but less tricky is the actual gasket. So on the rear turbo, you just kind of stick a pick in there and you peel it out. You pull that out just like that. And same with the front turbo. There it is. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to take our new gaskets and we want to press them in here. So we take our gasket and we put it in, press it in. It should fit right on there, and it's a close interference fit, right? So you kind of put it in there, push, and that's it. Do that for the other one, and then we can start outfitting our new downpipes. All right, so we're gonna do the rear turbo first, and we need to install the oxygen sensor on it. And we're gonna get it started like this. Good. And then we kind of rotate this guy around it. Good, just enough, and we'll tighten her up. All right, so for the rear turbo, we want to take our new clamp and basically set it on over just like that. Now what I've done here was I put like an O-ring on this. You can probably see it right there. I put an O-ring on the screw threads in order to hold it in place so that I can get the actual turbo exhaust manifold in place. This is actually really tricky to do. But if you're lucky, you might be able to get it on the first try. If not, it's going to take a lot longer. It's just, where do you hold your hands? Where do you keep your hands? I got this one at least set in place, but the screw isn't long enough. I can't tell you how frustrating this is. I've been working on this for a half hour, and my arms are really tired. And the screw is like 2 threads too short when you try to compress them completely with your hands. And if I just touch this thing, it's just gonna shatter and fall off. It's being held in place by the friction of the seal. That's basically it. This is very, very frustrating. But I'm just gonna keep on trying, and if I can just get one thread to grab, I'm good. But my God, give me just a little bit longer of a thread, VRSF. Come on, guys. All right, I got it. And it now is free to rotate, which is important because you wanna keep this loose just enough so that you can align the downpipes with the rest of the exhaust. So I'm gonna try putting the other one on, and then I'm going to tighten them all up when I have the full exhaust mated up against it. All right, I got them both installed, and that was really hard. I've done a lot of stuff in my time, but that was really frustrating. I do have access to both of those bolts, this one here, and then that one over there. However, I am not going to tighten them yet because I need to make sure that they will install. So as you can see, kind of moves a little bit. Both of them kind of move just a tiny bit, and you want that. What you really want here is if you look at this flange, you'll see that these are basically perfectly flat, okay? And you want these to be in that same flatness plane, and you can see that they're not. So you kind of have to rotate both of these guys in order for it to, meet that criteria. This way you can have a good educated guess before you put the exhaust up. So I'm seeing that these are not lining up exactly how I wanted, but I think that the bolts being put on here will actually help crimp a lot of this together. So we do need to get the exhaust hinge hanger up here. We gotta get that installed. And that way we can lower this guy down, and then we can use the bolts to clamp these together. Then we can tighten these guys up completely because I still want these to be able to freely rotate just a little bit, just enough. So let's get these guys on and move from there. I finally got access to that one at the top that was really difficult to get to. The nut and bolt theory is difficult, especially when you have to hold the nut on one side. But this is all nice and loose. I feel very confident in tightening this up, tightening those two V-bands up, and I am good to go with this exhaust. So let's do that right now and see how everything looks. All right, so the two V-bands are tight. All oxygen sensors are tight and installed. All 4 of these guys have been tightened down. I still need to finish this, but that's not really that important. And you want to check one more thing before we wrap up this video, and that is to make sure that you've reconnected your 2 oxygen sensors, that you've relieved that pressure earlier in order to get that access to those upper sensors. So that's it. You guys got to make sure you reconnect these in the positions that they need to be. Remember, the black wire here is the forwardmost, and the gray wire back there is for the rearmost one. So having said that, I think it's safe to say that we are done with the VRSF downpipes, the installation, mating it to the exhaust, oxygen sensor routing, and that's just about it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out all the other videos in this N54 maintenance series. My name is Frank Macaluso from Garageaholic, and I am out of here.